The cry of a baby in any home on the continent of Africa and in Nigeria is considered to be a happy one because the arrival of a baby signifies fulfillment, joy and happiness. For the women folk, most especially in Nigeria here, carrying your own child in your arms is a sign of success. It's a sign of fulfillment. And today on the show, we have somebody with us who knows it all and who has seen it all, the joys, the sadness, and in-betweens of having a child of your own. This is the person we seek to unravel on the program today as we welcome you to Executive Discuss. I am Ololade Adeniji. Let's take this quick break. When we return, you will get to meet my guest on the show. On Executive Discuss today, coming to you on the network service of the NTA, my guest is someone who has seen it all. He is a man who has seen the successes, the failures, and all in between in the quest for the fruit of the womb, both from the women and from the men. Please join us as we welcome to Executive Discuss a professor of gynecology and obstetrics, a professor emeritus, a man who ought to be tired, judging by his age, but he's neither retired nor tired. I am talking of Professor Osato Aven Giwa Osage. Hello, how are you, sir?
Thank you very much. Welcome.
Thank you.
Hours a day, 7 days a week. You can watch NTA International live on your TV, computer, iPad, tablet and phone. Log on to visiontv.co.uk and click on Entertainment, then NTAI. You can also download the iOS or Android app on your mobile devices to watch NTA International on the go, anywhere in the world. NTA International, your window to the world.
You are a man, like I said in my introduction, who's seen it all, especially in the area of having children, obstetrics and gynecology. But before we go into all of that, let's start. Who is Professor Giwa Osage? What's your background? What was it like for you growing as a child?
Well, I was born to a Bini father, the late Chief Frank Sumola Giwa Osage, who was the first Nigerian Director of Prisons, that's the head of prison service in Nigeria, to a mother who was half Ishekiri, half Benin, Mrs. Etota Margaret Giwa Osage, ni Erewa Medicine. my father went to King's College, Lagos, and was recruited without interview into the prison service as a clerk on the basis of a superlative anchor leg he ran in the relay race for King's College in the Greer Cup competition between secondary schools. So as soon as he got employment, my mother, who was at that time at a school called UMC in Ibadan, where she was learning about domestic science and things like that. And they decided to get married. And she was quite young, you know. I think she was like 17 or so. So they got married, and they settled in Lagos, and they were living at Cambo Street. The house is still there, Cambo Street, Lagos. And that's where they were when I was born. So when I went to joke with Lagosians, I'll tell them that I'm Homo Campus. And this is very interesting because you know how Yorubas sometimes call anybody born beyond Ore as a Kobo Kobo.
Kobo Kobo.
So when you get somebody who has come from Ogbomoso and who only came to Lagos to go to secondary school or to work, calling me, born in Lagos, Cambo Street, Lagos, a Kobo Kobo. I find that very ironical. And I never miss the opportunity to embarrass them when they make that mistake. Anyway, that was how I came into this world. I was born at Mercy Street Maternity when my father was working at the prison service. As an officer of the prisons department, he was transferred all over the country. He worked in the north, in what is now known as southwest, and the east, everywhere. And they took me along with them, my mother and my father. There were 3 girls before me. The ladies were left with my mother's mother in Benin, and I was the one my parents were taking along like a handbag everywhere they were transferred to. So I ended up going to about 5 elementary schools for my primary education. And so I schooled in Port Harcourt, schooled in Enugu, schooled in Kaduna, schooled in Warri, schooled in Benin, and ended up schooling in Christ Church Cathedral School, Broad Street, Lagos. And it was from there I passed the entrance into King's College, Lagos. I was in the very first batch of people who did National Common Entrance.
Okay.
So I ended up at King's College. So this exposure to different parts of Nigeria, I think is responsible for my very liberal attitude in looking at people as people rather than Yoruba or Igbo or Hausa, Fulani, all those things. It also explains why I understand about 5 different languages, because I went to school in all those places. Even at this time, you can see the relief in the faces of my patients when I speak their language, even if I only know about 4 sentences.
Yes.
So that was my background. I ended up at King's College, Lagos. I spent 7 years there, 5 years to do school cert, and then 2 years to do higher school certificate. At that time, the higher school certificate was the Cambridge University Higher School Certificate. At King's College, there was an emphasis on combining sports with academics.
Okay.
The people that were most admired at King's College were those who were able to be good sportsmen and still do well in their classwork. And I happened to be one of those people. And so I won various prizes, the final one being the Vetch Prize, which was donated by Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe, at that time Governor General of Nigeria, for the boy who best excels in sports and academic work. That's what it was given for, and I won it in 1965. I was a sprinter, 100 yards. In football, I was a goalkeeper. I wasn't a very good goalkeeper. And I retired myself from goalkeeping when Government College Ibadan beat us 6-2 or 6-3 at their grounds in Ibadan on a rainy day.
You had to retire yourself.
I retired myself. I said, I'm not doing goalkeeping anymore. Because it was a rainy day. The football, not like this very light footballs they are using now. They were made of like leather, and it rained, so the ball was very heavy. So they will kick a shot, and then I would try to hold it, but it will hit my chest and go back to the person that kicked it, and he just slot it in. I said, no, I'm not going to be going through this. So when we got back to Lagos, I told them I was keeping for the second 11 at that time. I told them I'm not keeping again. So I changed to hockey.
Okay.
So in upper six, I did the entrance exam to Cambridge University. And how this came about was my father, on a visit to the UK, he went to the Nigerian High Commission, and there was a woman in the High Commission on Great Portland Street at that time, an English woman called Miss Long, L-O-N-G. And my father told Miss Long that he has this son who's very bright, because I was getting good reports from King's College, and that he would like him to go to university in England. Then the woman said to my father, if your son is that good, then he should try for Cambridge. So you can see that I had nothing at all to do with it. So the woman applied for the forms, gave them to my father, and I received the form I had to fill. The principal of King's College had to give a testimonial. The housemaster had to write something, and the games master, of course, they all gave me very good reports, and they all hoped that I will get in, because it made the teacher proud if their product went to Cambridge or Oxford. About a week later, I was told that I have to do the entrance exam to Cambridge University. It was Miss Long that chose the college I should go to at Cambridge for me. So she had chosen Clare College, Cambridge. Why was this? Because there was a man called Sir Eric Ashby who did an Ashby report on education in Nigeria. So she said, look, let your son try for that college, because the man knows something about Nigeria. And that's how I did the entrance exam. I was the only candidate, and I was sitting in the King's College Hall alone. And I was supervised by the late Mr. Gaius Anoka. When we finished, Mr. Anoka sealed the big brown envelope, 3 different brown envelopes, used this red gum that they use for sealing things, so that if you tamper with it, they would know. And he said that I should follow him to the post office to go and register it. So I walked with him to the post office. At that time, there was a post office where the city hall is now, in Lagos Island. We went there, he registered the package, and he gave me the registration slip. He said, here is your registration slip. You have witnessed me sending it. You see how meticulous people were in those days? So, honestly, I wasn't thinking about the Cambridge entrance at all. But I had taken a precaution. Just to tell you how we don't take things for granted. I had done the Cambridge Higher School Certificate exam. I also entered for the London A-level exam. So I was doing 2 exams that are equivalent.
At the same time.
Because I wanted to make sure I started university the next year and didn't have to wait an extra year. So at the age of 19, and after we finished the school cert, we all had jobs. We didn't have all this unemployment thing. I was working at General Hospital lab as a lab technician. I wasn't qualified, so they couldn't call me a lab scientist. I was in the room. About 10 of us employed. We were assisting the lab scientists in doing their work. We were being paid, you know. And the lab was opposite the prison. The prison is what they call Freedom Park now,
yes,
on Broad Street. So we were in the building opposite it, and the result came out. I saw that I got what was required, so I knew I was going abroad. And I worked till August. Then September, I was just enjoying myself, going to Kakadu with King's College boys to go and listen to Fela.
yes.
So I stepped in England on 10th of September, 1966. My whole family followed me to Ikeja Airport. I was in Clare College in Cambridge, where Sir Eric Ashby was the master. And on my very first day at Cambridge, I ran into another Nigerian who later became engineer Dotun Adamolekun.
Okay.
He was reading engineering, I was reading medicine, but we were both in Clare College.
So you studied medicine?
Yes, I studied medicine at Cambridge.
At Cambridge University. And you came back to Nigeria immediately after that?
No. The Cambridge system, as part of your medical degree, you do a bachelor's degree. So I have a BA in pathology. Then Cambridge did not have a clinical school. So most of us had to go to London for the clinicals. I went to King's College Hospital in London for my clinicals. But you come back to Cambridge to sit the final exam in medicine.
Okay.
3 years later. I did all that. Then I ended up working at King's College Hospital, London, in Denmark Hill. Then when I finished, I decided to specialize in obstetrics and gynecology. I didn't just go into it that this is what I want.
Okay.
I played with the idea of doing cardiorespiratory medicine. I played with the idea of doing urology, that's surgery, and so on. Then I decided that I should do obs and gynae because I was interested in endocrinology, that's hormones.
Yes.
And if you do obstetrics and gynecology, you are dealing with hormones and so
yes.
on. And I was obviously influenced by my late uncle, Professor Tira Bello Osagye,
Okay.
who was a famous gynecologist in Nigeria and looked after so many heads of states' wives. Luckily for me, King's College Hospital in London had produced more presidents of the Royal College of Obs and Gynae than any other teaching hospital in Britain. So it had a firm root in that specialty. And so I started specializing. Then we had an elective year. I went to Leeds and did a master's in endocrinology. And then qualified as a specialist. And then by this time, I had become a lecturer.
Okay.
I was a lecturer at King's College Hospital Medical School. They call it lecturer in human reproduction, but I was in the Department of Obstetrics and Gynecology. I was doing lots of projects for the World Health Organization.
Okay. Now, Prof, let me come in here. So it's safe to say that your uncle's practice in gynecology, to an extent, influenced your decision to go into gynae and obstetrics?
Well, yes.
To an extent?
Yes, I like his lifestyle.
Okay. Now, you going into Cambridge, it was a decision that was taken above your head.
Yes.
You didn't have a choice but to go in there. But did you also not have a choice to study something else apart from medicine, or was it medicine you wanted? And if so, why medicine?
I had decided I was going to be a doctor from about the age of 7 or 8.
Okay.
My father had a classmate and very close friend, the late Dr. George Garrick at King's College. He was a Benin man. And Chief Dr. B.J. Ikpeme of Calabar. They were both King's College boys. They were his classmates at King's College. And they were doctors. And then my uncle, Professor T. Bello Sagie. So you had these three people who were close to the family. I used to visit and I used to see them. And so I liked how they carried themselves. And they have the stethoscope around their neck. And then you open their car, the car will be smelling of medicines. And I just liked it. And then as I got older, I liked the fact that somebody may be in pain or unwell, and the doctor goes to see them. 2 days later, you find that they are smiling at you. So that's what interested me in medicine. And also at that time, there were only 3 professions you could go into: medicine, law and engineering. Finish. Every other thing was considered to be nonsense by the parents. They all wanted their children to be one of those 3. Later on, accountancy joined, then architecture.
All right, you've been in medicine, you've specialized in obstetrics and gynecology, and definitely you have impacted so many lives. How fulfilling has it been for you? Is this a case of a dream come true, impacting lives and bringing smiles to the faces of couples, especially women?
Immediately I started doing research in endocrinology and fertility at King's College Hospital. That brought me in contact with World Health Organization. So I was on their research panels, planning research for different countries in the world. So I was now interested in family planning as well as infertility. So, and then I had got a master's in endocrinology. So by the time I came back to Nigeria, I was already like a super specialist. I wasn't just an O&G person. I was O&G, was specializing in fertility. Then in the everyday work in Nigeria, of course, I was delivering people. I was also treating people who had infertility. I had several women who had been married over 10 years, who through coming to me became pregnant. Even 1 or 2 became so fertile with my treatment that after they had 4 children, the husband said,
"It's
Prof,
enough.
It's enough, I beg you. We've had enough." And many of them are still friends with me till today. So it's been very fulfilling in that way. But when it goes wrong, the same people who are hailing you, first of all, if you are lucky, they may not greet you when they see you, then you are very lucky. But some people, some gynecologists get into more serious problems. The patient or the husband or relation will petition to the hospital and Ministry of Health, petition the Medical and Dental Council, alleging that their relation was mismanaged or neglected, particularly if it results in death. Luckily, technology has improved chances because we now have in vitro fertilization.
Yes, and that's where I was coming to, because you started impacting lives positively, not just treating women, but also specializing in fertility. Now coming to in vitro fertilization, that's IVF. You're one of the pioneers of IVF in Nigeria, and in fact in West Africa, I must say.
Yes.
What was it about the IVF? What was it that gave you the push, the drive to take on this, at that particular time, hitherto unknown technology to us here?
Well, I had my first introduction to IVF at Cambridge University. In my second year physiology class in medicine, we were lectured to by Dr. Robert Edwards, who with step-toe produced the first baby from IVF in the world. He was our lecturer in physiology, and he used to show us these pictures of rabbit eggs fertilized, and we used to laugh at him. We would come here to learn human medicine.
You're showing us
rabbit eggs. But a few years later, when I was at King's College Hospital, they produced the first baby. I said, wow. So this man continued with this work. So I had that introduction. Then when I came to Nigeria October 6th, 1978, which is 42 years ago. And it was obvious that infertility was a big problem. And worse still, every doctor and nurse thought that they were specialists in infertility because they got a lot of patients and they could make money from it. So when I came and I started talking about WHO activities and fertility, IVF, all those things, some of them were just looking at me that we do all that, we treat infertility. In those days, Luth had an office in London. They interviewed me in London and gave me a ticket for myself and ticket for my wife and 2 children and to come back to Lagos.
Home.
I just collaborated with a man called Mr. Ayo Sonyaolu, who was the chief technologist in our department, whom I had been at Leeds University with when I was doing my master's. And so he was able to measure hormones. So we started measuring hormones in different women and male conditions. Women who had irregular periods, women who didn't see periods for 3 months, 6 months, and trying to find out whether a particular hormone called prolactin was raised or not. So it was just, we were doing it quietly. I got a number of cases. Then we'll draw the graphs. I'll go and discuss with Professor Akinla, and then I'll write it up for publication. So before anybody knew what was happening, I published several papers of causes of infertility. I was not doing infertility by mouth, as many doctors and nurses were at that time. And little by little, I became recognized as an expert on infertility. And so one day, there was a conference at the College of Medicine by the Lagos University Medical Society about infertility. I spoke. Then Professor Ashiru spoke. That time was Dr. Ashiru. And he had studied the control of hormones in mice for his PhD at the University of Nebraska. And he was now a senior lecturer in the Department of Anatomy in Luth. And so it became obvious that, look, if he's in the hormone line, I'm managing the woman, that we can work together towards making this thing happen in Lagos. So we met, we agreed that, okay, we should go for further exposure. I went off to England, where I trained, went to King's College Hospital, and actually went back to Nebraska, and he got a grant from Rockefeller Foundation for the equipment, and then we started working together. I will collect the eggs by laparoscopy at that time. Now we collect it using ultrasound. Then he will take it to his lab, and he and Abisogun will work on it. And that's what we are doing. We're using the equipment Professor Ashiru had got from Rockefeller Foundation. And I was using my own money to buy whatever I needed, assisted by my family. Then we had a pregnancy.
Wow.
So we said, well, this thing has worked. And so Dr. Abisogu presented our results at a conference at the College of Medicine, West African Association of Anatomists. The Guardian newspaper carried it on its front page, because by that time the woman had miscarried. So the headline was, test tube baby aborts.
Wow.
You can imagine sensational headline.
Wow.
And reported what Abisogun said at the conference. So that was the first recorded case. And we had more pregnancies until we had a lady who got pregnant and actually delivered, but delivered abroad.
Wow.
And brought the baby
back.
when she came back. And that one again was carried and publicized as the first IVF baby in 1989. So that's how it started. At the same time, there was no mechanism for patients to pay in government hospitals. You could pay for bed, pay for drugs, but you can't pay for IVF. So we cannot be using something we have purchased with our own personal money, and the patient is not paying for it.
Yes.
So that was the atmosphere that existed that made me decide to set up IVF privately.
Okay.
Because it was the time when people were disappearing to Saudi Arabia and so on. You could see a professor today. He says, oh, okay, we'll discuss tomorrow. You go and look for him tomorrow. He has gone. We were the only center in the whole of West Africa, East and Central Africa. It was only Nigeria, Egypt, and South Africa that were doing IVF when we did it. But today, the last statistics I had, there were almost 100 IVF centers in Nigeria. And that number is double the number of the other West African countries put together. So Nigeria is the center to be in.
It's a very close one and a very both friendly and professional and almost like brothers and brothers. But the way we started is quite interesting. We were both at the College of Medicine, University of Lagos, which runs an academic seminar on a monthly basis. So this particular one was a big academic conference, and Professor Giwa Sage and myself, who were speakers at this conference, we were both young lecturers. And there was a third person who also presented. At the end of the presentation, it was clear to both of us that we are working in the same area of reproductive biology. So at the end of it, we both called each other and said, I think we can work together in some areas. At this point, I had one of my students who was already doing some experimental work on in vitro fertilization in the experimental animal. So, having perfected this, he also joined to see what we were doing, to see how we were proceeding. So when we succeeded, we then knew that we had to go into humans. So he proceeded to go and do some visitation in England. And I proceeded to the United States of America, where I was trained to do some visitation to see what was going on in this field. And by the time we came back, we brought all the things we need to start the technique of in vitro fertilization. During the process, I found that Sato was very willing, very knowledgeable, and very experienced, because we were going into a novel field, as far as we're concerned in Africa, a field where just one person has made a breakthrough, or a couple of, just that is one group, that is the Steptoe and Edwards, and that is Patrick Steptoe and Robert Edwards. They have made their own landmark in this area. Now, we entered this field in 1980, trying to see how we can work again in this area. And that was the way we proceeded, through a lot of labor, dedication, determination, with a lot of integrity and decorum. We carried this work constantly until we succeeded. So we had our own, we had 17 transfers, and we got 2 pregnancies from this. One aborted in 1984. In fact, by that time, we would have rated very highly in the global profile among those who can pioneer in vitro fertilization. But it was an abortion, and we still continue, we persevere, and we succeeded in 86 and in 89 to make our breakthroughs. In all this, you find out that Osato is a unique person. He's not a typical obstetrics and gynecology. He's quite willing to work with anyone. He was quite knowledgeable because he has had this Master of Science in endocrinology from Cambridge University, where he had done his MBBS. And so the two of us, we broke the record, and we were trailblazers in the college. At one point, I used to consult in his clinic, and I saw the way he handled his patients. So we both interacted constantly, and I think that anywhere you go in Nigeria or internationally, when you break the history of in vitro fertilization in Nigeria, if you mention Giwa Sage, you have to mention Ashiro. But I will tell you that in all my dealings with Osato over many years, I don't think that I ever saw him annoyed. We never had any cause to exchange any heated argument. We understood each other very well, and it's an understanding that still continues.
Now, Nigeria is the center of IVF, from what you have said. What exactly is responsible for this high prevalence of infertility in Nigeria?
Well, one, there's ignorance. You'll still be surprised the number of people that don't know when the fertile time in a woman's cycle is. I was writing a chapter on a book for WHO some years ago, and I decided to go and discuss at that time with the Oba of Benin, and not this president, but
Yes.
his father, and who is a Cambridge graduate, a lawyer, and PAMSEC health and so on before he retired. Was very civilized, available to discuss, and his brain was like a computer. I told him I'm writing this chapter about infertility, and I want to get a traditional perspective. So we started discussing what was the fertile time in a woman's cycle, between one menstrual cycle and the next one. Where is the fertile time? He told me in the Benin traditional way,
Yes.
is immediately after the bleeding ends. Now, scientifically, immediately after the bleeding ends, there shouldn't be any mature egg there. Secondly, we know that sexually transmitted diseases, gonorrhea, chlamydia, is very important because they will block the tubes. Thirdly, delivering in unhygienic environments and being in labor for too long allows infection to enter the woman's genital tract, damage her uterus, damage her tubes. That's a very important cause. Other things like ruptured appendix can lead to adhesion, blocking the tubes, yes. Previous operation for, let's say, fibroid. Scar tissue may form that will block the tube.
You talked about the challenges, the causes of infertility in Nigeria, which have been and still obtain till date. But I beg to disagree in one of the points you made about delivering in unhygienic circumstances and all of that. Our mothers in the villages in the days of old were considered very fertile. Yet, they weren't privy to the kind of facilities that we have here today. So, isn't this a contradiction, kind of?
Well, when you look at it that way, you have to remind yourself that you are talking in very general terms.
Yes.
And not statistical terms.
Yes, no statistics to prove
exactly.
it.
And yes, one factor is that our mothers and grandmothers, they start having children at a younger age than the modern woman is having her children. And many of them, because of the custom, married as virgins. Whereas now, the person who's getting married, he may have had maybe 3, 4, 5 men, and therefore increasing the chances that she was exposed to sexually transmitted infections. So all those are things that they have a greater risk of. An important cause of infertility is damage to the tubes as a result of complicated abortion, or what people so often discuss criminal abortion. People get pregnant, they don't want the pregnancy, and many times they cannot afford to go to properly trained specialists to terminate the pregnancy. So they go to all sorts of people. They go to traditionalists, they go to theater technicians, and so on. They go to chemists who do it in the pharmacy, and then they damage their tubes, and they damage their uterus, introduce infection, which and damages the tubes.
All right. I'm sure that with all the successes we have recorded, there are still challenges to that technology. And in spite of being a worldwide technology that's been accepted, we still have our challenges here. And especially for you, who is known to be an IVF specialist. What challenges are these?
We have overcome the technology transfer.
Okay.
We are able to do IVF. If you have enough money to buy the equipment and send your people for training, within 6 months, they may be producing pregnancies. So that's no longer a challenge.
Okay.
The challenge is the cost to the patient.
Still quite high.
Even in government-owned hospitals, they cannot do IVF for less than 800,000 per attempt. So there's therefore a challenge of access, financial access to IVF. There are almost 100 IVF centers in Nigeria, but nobody has been able to solve the problem of the cost. And because the cost is very high for the average patient. Now, you are talking of something that has a 30 to 40% pregnancy rate. In other words, in the majority of cases, there's no pregnancy. And then they are spending 1 million.
And that money seems to go down the drain.
Yes. I've had patients before, when you tell them the result that is negative, they just start weeping. Because they can imagine what that 1 million, 1.5 could have done for them in terms of comfort, or even buying land, or doing roofing of their house. And so one patient told me some years ago that it was as if he just took the money and threw it into the lagoon.
Wow.
I mean, the other day, about a year or so in my hospital, we had a woman with no baby, and she did IVF, and she ended up with 4.
Oh, goodness.
3 boys and 1 girl. So you get triplets, twins and so on. And when it succeeds, they will tell you there's nothing they will not sacrifice for that pregnancy. So the practitioner has the duty to prepare the patient also for failure.
Psychologically.
Yes. So all these things are the negative side of it.
Professor Osage can be considered a successful man in the art and craft of bringing babies to life. Why not let's take a pause here to meet people who have worked with him as colleagues, as members of staff, or even as friends, to find out who really he is on the work field. Let's meet those individuals.
Prof is a father, a teacher, a friend, a confidant, somebody you can tell anything. There is nothing I cannot tell Prof. And I also believe there's nothing he cannot tell me. Job related, who, children, whatever. You can share it with him. He's such a cheerful person to work with. Prof have put big smile in so many people's faces. I can't even accountable people that have entered this small place, at the end they go out with joy. He has really, in the field of IVF, I'm sure people know that he's one of the pioneers of IVF in West Africa region. So he has really touched lives. He has touched so many women. Some people, when they come here, you know, somebody looking for a child, they are normally sad when they come. But when they see Prof will just crack one joke. We say, come. If you are an Igbo, we say, Bia. If you are Yoruba, we say, you know, he will speak that Yoruba language. We say, come, let me touch you. Prof, I'll put something here, you know, just to relax them. But by the time he's through with you, you will know you are going somewhere. When we are doing our party, sometimes end of the year, most of our children, they come. So you see different people that Prof have told their stories.
Professor Giwa Osage is a man of timber and caliber. He makes sure that he puts smile into individuals, most especially those who come here to look for the fruit of the wombs. He makes sure that they go home with children at the end of the day by taking his time to treat them. So many things he does. As a matter of fact, many people, they know him, that he's a very good person. He has that knowledge to help people in most cases. I can remember about a month ago, a woman just came in. He's a widow. The woman was crying. No money for him to eat, for her to eat. So, Professor, even himself hasn't got anything that day. He was looking for money to give to the patient. So he gave the patient money that will satisfy her and her family that day. So I was just looking at him. All his workers, he carried them along. He treated them equally. He's very, very good. He doesn't know how to say no. When somebody says, give me this, that is the only area where we are telling him that he should mellow down. No. Professor Satogiwa is the type, when he has 100 naira and somebody come, oh, this is what I want, he will just release the 100 naira. That is his whole life. As far as I'm concerned, he's a generous man.
I was once a student nurse in this Lagos University Teaching Hospital School of Nursing, and then when we were posted to Gynae ward, that was the first time we ever met Emeritus Professor Giwa Osage and Professor Gede Mbedem. They were consultants in obstetric and gynecology. So as at that time, we always look up to him that, this is a good teacher. Because even at ward round, he's always ready to impart knowledge in everybody, irrespective of who you are. Professor Gilbert Osage is a selfless man. He is humble to the core. When I said humble, his humility make people to cluster around him. You can never see somebody of his own personality. You see cleaners, drivers, even the clerk, everybody cluster around him because of his humility. He's a selfless man. He is a problem solver. In fact, there was a time he was sick. Everybody was like, oh, we can't afford to lose this man. So everybody started praying for him to get well and back on his feet. So Prof is a dedicated person. He's dedicated to his job. Even as good as he is, you don't trample on him when it comes to getting efficient service delivery pertaining to his job. Then you see the other side of him, no matter who you are. Then his selflessness makes us to do more. It makes us to do more in the sense that we are nurses, we're supposed to be limited to nurses' role. So we're not. We tend to move on beyond what a nurse can do in terms of recruiting clients, getting patients ready for their scans. Even we have to make calls. Prof's weak points. Did I even see any? Did I see any? I doubt it. I doubt it. Maybe age. Peradventure we'll discuss a particular client with him. Say, oh, matron, can you remind me about this person? And once I'm able to remind him maybe just few words about the patient, he remember all and he pick up from there. But I see it as age.
Professor Gilbert Osage is, my relationship with him is multifaceted. He is a mentor, he is a senior colleague, he is an advisor. He used to be the head of my department quite a number of times in the about 10 years or so ago, and even more. In fact, I think he holds the record for having been head of department most times in the Department of Obstetrics and Gynecology. I think he served a total of 3 terms as head of department. He's a very affable, very charming, very intelligent man. He has the memory of, I don't know which animal we can use as an owl, and he also has a large repository of knowledge, both medical, social, political, name it. He's an enigma. He's an amazing person. And one thing that I know and really like about him is that he doesn't try to manipulate or steer you. Even as a mentor, as an advisor, he tells you, he gives you advice when you ask for it, and then he lets you do what you want to do, and I really like that about him. He's not controlling, as a lot of mentors can be, and as a lot of senior colleagues can be. He's very politically savvy in the medical world, and he knows how to get the things he wants. He knows how to get things done. But he's a really, really amazing person. And I really am happy and proud to have been mentored by him and to have worked with and in the same department with him. I'm really honored to have had that opportunity.